Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Hi, how are you all? I hope you're all well on this, what day is it? Tuesday. Well, tonight we're going to talk about a very, very interesting, mystifying, and as yet really still unsolved case. Lots of theories about this case. People, it's one of those, isn't it? It's this case of Gareth Williams is the typical or the archetypal mystery, because what appears to have happened, some people say it could not possibly have happened. Other people say it definitely did happen. Some people say foul play. Some people say accident. It's one of those that we will probably never, ever have the definitive answer to, because the only person who knows exactly what happens is Gareth himself, who, of course, is no longer with us, no longer on this planet. Or if it was foul play, whoever did it to him. So Gareth Williams was found in a bag in his bath, in his flat in Pimlico, after being reported missing in a way, or his colleagues contacting the police they hadn't been heard of for over a week, or just about a week. And the police did a welfare check and found poor Gareth in a bag, a hold-all, in his bathroom, padlocked, locked. The key was in the bag with Gareth under his body. And since then, it's been nothing but controversy as to how he got in there, how he died. Was it something he did to himself, or was it somebody else did to him? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So first of all, I just want to say hello to everybody before I get into the story proper. And of course, in this story pops up our resident expert, Peter Folding. So we're going to be hearing from Peter tonight as well. And it was interesting when I was researching this case. I just wondered, is this where the bad feeling between him and the police started? Because I still think there's something more to the way Peter was treated by the police. I feel like there's more going on here with Peter and between Peter and the police in general, not just Lancashire police. And he was at odds with what the police said in this instance as well. So anyway, we'll see what you think. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at all the angles. We're going to look at how Peter had an influence on this case, what the coroner thought, what the police thought, what the family thought, and then you make your own mind up as to what you think. I honestly don't know, to be honest. I don't think this one will be any different. I think, I personally, I have no idea. I don't know, but there are thoughts that I have about it, reasons, if you like, let's say. There are some reasons why I think it could be that he did it to himself, and we'll go through those. And there's other things that make me think that it must have been foul play, and we'll go through those. So you'll just decide what you think. But here he is, poor Gareth. This is Gareth. He was a very keen cyclist. To all intents and purposes, from what I've read about him, he was a very nice man. You know, he liked nature, he liked fitness, he wasn't a pretentious man, you know, and you'll see that. People described him as nice, easy to get along with, etc. So it's a shame, because whatever happened to Gareth, it seems, I mean, he was only 31 when he died. So, you know, he had a short life, really, though he had quite a remarkable life, even though it was short. It's a shame, isn't it? Because he seemed like a nice person. He certainly wasn't a twonk. So Gareth is Welsh, or was Welsh, and he was born on the 26th of September in 1978. and he died on what they think, this is the date, the official date that's been given, the 16th of August 2010. So we're looking at 13 years ago, and that is my birthday. He died on, or the date of death that they gave him after the inquest was my birthday, but he was not found until much later. So that is not a, you know, they can't be sure that that's exactly when he died. Already there we've got David saying he was murdered, but there are other people saying that no, maybe he wasn't, including Richard Shepherd, who is a very respected pathologist. So it's a very strange situation. Anyway, fine. So what happened was, because he'd not gone to work, he worked at, he was in the Secret Service. So this is the other thing that is very mysterious about Gareth. He was in the Secret Service. If I explain a little bit about his early life and how he ended up working there, he was a bit of a genius, Gareth. He was born in Anglesey in Wales, which I think I've got a picture for those of you who are not from the UK, or even not from Wales who may not know. I've got pictures somewhere of Anglesey. It's disappeared. There. Anglesey is a very beautiful place. There's a lot of places in Wales are very beautiful. Wales is a part of the United Kingdom, though it doesn't want to be. And it sounds like Gareth was from an area like that, because his first language was Welsh, not English. So he was probably a proud Welshman. And he was a bit of a genius. So he actually, even while he was still at high school, he studied for a mathematics degree part-time while he was at high school. And he actually graduated with a first, you know, the best degree that you can get. And he was only 17 years old. So bearing in mind, normally people don't even go to university until they're 18 years old. He graduated from studying for that degree part-time at the age of 17. So he obviously was quite clever. He then did a PhD at Manchester University. So he's lived in Manchester also, I presume, when he was at university. And he went on to do a further PhD sort of, what do they call it? A further postgrad course at Cambridge, but he dropped out of that course. So he must have had enough of studying by then, because he'd done quite a lot, really, when you think about it. Now, finally, his cause of death, just to let you know what his cause of death was ruled as, and it's still sort of up in the air. It was ruled as either assassination or he was unlawfully killed. The coroner was convinced that he was unlawfully killed, but other people not so much. And the police did their own separate investigation. This is what's making me think, is this where any animosity maybe started, or another bit of animosity with Peter Falding? Because the more you see about cases that Peter's been involved in, the more that you see he's been at odds with what the police thought. So, you know, why, I don't know, but he's always there, isn't he? Every famous case he pops up, like Mark Williams Thomas. Anyway, yeah, so he dropped out of his postgrad studies at Cambridge, and he went to work at GCHQ. Let's have a look at that. And that was in 2001. Got a picture of that somewhere. I was going to put them all in line, but anyway, never mind, you don't need to know. There's always a crisis. So this is GCHQ, and this is like the centre of communications in Britain, isn't it? It's like, you know, where all the shenanigans go on, I suppose. And it is in Cheltenham. And while he was working at GCHQ, he spent 10 years renting a room in Prestbury nearby. Now, apparently he loved that because he likes the countryside. Gareth liked cycling, fitness, etc. He wasn't like a person who liked, going out, like nightlife and all that sort of thing, drinking, etc. He was more into fitness, etc. So he loved being in a rural area. Cheltenham's a beautiful place. I've been to Cheltenham quite a few times with the races. When I worked on the race courses, I've worked at Cheltenham Racecourse many, many times. And it's a beautiful place. It really is a lovely place to visit. So he enjoyed living there, but he lived there for 10 years. And he sort of rented like an annex of a house. And apparently everyone says he was an intensely private man. He was a keen cyclist, as we can see. And when he died, he was on leave. He was on holiday leave. Not from GCHQ, because after GCHQ, he was enlisted by the Secret Service and he went to work for the Secret Service. But he didn't like it, and he had put in a request to go back to work at GCHQ, and he was supposed to be starting back there in the September, but he never got to start back there because he died in August when he was on annual leave. So that's interesting. I wondered if that might have had something to do with it when he told them he didn't want to be in the Secret Service anymore. I mean, is that something you can do, or will they come and sort of dispose of you? I don't know. Anyway, on the afternoon of the Monday, the 23rd of August, police visited his flat and for a welfare check, because his colleagues had contacted them to say nobody had heard from him for about 7 days. So for 7 days, he'd not been heard of. And what they found there was in the main bedroom of his flat in Pimlico, which I think I've got a photo of as well, actually. Yeah, this is his flat in Pimlico, or the outside of it. Probably one of those places, that in London, like the old buildings where they look small from the outside, but they're quite big inside, because there was more than one bedroom anyway in there. And in the principal bedroom, in the ensuite bathroom, that's where they found, in the bath, they found Gareth Williams' body in a bag, which was a little bit like this one. I have got a photo, a little bit like this bag in the bath. If you're wondering about this hand, this is not Gareth. I think that is actually Peter Folding's hand coming out of that, because Peter Folding tried to reenact the thing. And they found him in there. So they found the bag. They opened, the bag was padlocked. They broke open and it was locked from the outside. And they broke open in the bag, and in the bag was poor Gareth's body, sort of curled up in the bag, and the keys to the padlock were underneath his body. Which is a bit strange, really, isn't it? When you think, well, it's all strange. The whole thing about this case is strange, and I'm going to talk about that later. What these different things might mean. And his body was, not to be graphic, but it had decomposed quite a lot, because the central heating was on in the property, and also because it had been 7 days, that they thought that he had probably at least 7 days that he was in there. And they know that from the CCTV of the last time he was seen, or the last CCTV that they could find of him. And then when the police actually went along there to find him. So very sad for Gareth's family, to sort of find that out. I mean, but the thing is, how did he get in that bag? Was he put in the bag or did he get in it himself? And there's reasons for and against both possible scenarios. Sorry. So a reason why a lot of people think he cannot have put himself in the bag is there were no fingerprints, and not only no third-party fingerprints, but no fingerprints. Gareth's, around the bath, on the bag, on the padlock, there were no fingerprints or DNA. So, that obviously leads people to think that maybe that had been cleaned, afterwards, because how did he get in that bag without there being any DNA or fingerprints? Now, they did find a couple of fragments of DNA from at least 2 other people on the bag, but these fragments were too small to be able to be identified. So they call them inconclusive fragments of DNA. And really, I suppose you could think they could come from anywhere, really. Anyone who had handled the bag at any point, even people, where he'd bought it, etc. But there was no definitive DNA found. Now, the family from the beginning thought it was a cover-up. The family was suspicious right from the beginning that there was some sort of cover-up. Now, the flat that he lived in was a security service safe house. So, it was like a tied flat, if you like. It was what they call golden handcuffs, don't they? When they sort of, it's like part of your job, you're given a flat, and it's like, just because you're working in that job, but it's like can keep you in a job, because if you lose your job, you also lose your house, or your home, I should say. Anyway, there was no sign of forced entry, and there was no DNA to say that there had been any third party present. So, there was just nothing. There was no evidence of third party involvement at all. But of course, I suppose, for someone who knows what to do, that's easy enough to cover up. But no forced entry. So was it, if it was foul play, was it somebody that he knew that he'd just let in there? Oh, and by the way, I need to say he was naked in the bag, so he was wearing no clothes whatsoever. And this is what led the coroner. Now, I want to have a look at the coroner. Let me see, because she's it was a lady coroner. Where is she? Here she is. Fiona Wilcox. Now, Fiona Wilcox has been a coroner in many high-profile cases. She was the coroner in the Greenfell fire in the tower block that went up in flames. She was the coroner in those cases, because there were loads of them, weren't they? So she's seen some pretty grim things. I mean, I think what we have to admit, I don't think it's the coroner actually that does the sort of the gory bit of it. The coroner takes the findings of the coroner's assistants, etc. And of course, it's the forensic pathologist that sort of does the gory bits, and then the coroner makes the verdicts according to the evidence that they're presented with. So she also was famous for another case, which I'm going to show you in a bit, but I won't go off it yet, because it means I have to come off these, and I want to stay on these because I might not be able to get back on them again. You know what I'm like with the old technology. So this is what led the absence of DNA and the absence of fingerprints, even Gareth's fingerprints, was what led the coroner to take the opinion that there was probably some third-party involvement, there was probably some foul play. Now, his cause of death has never been made clear. There was no toxicology in his system that came up. They thought that he may have died of carbon dioxide poisoning, because of being in the bag. But again, nothing conclusive. They don't know that for sure. However, after this coroner's report, after the coroner's verdict was finally issued, the inquest verdict, the Met Police conducted their own inquiry, which took another 12 months. And the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Martin Hewitt, let's have a look at him. This is Martin Hewitt. He decided that it was theoretically possible that Gareth may have done this to himself, may have put himself in the bag, zipped up the bag, padlocked it, and then maybe dropped the keys or something, and then suffocated, because Dr. Shepherd, Dr. Richard Shepherd, he did say that it was possible that he could have suffocated within minutes of closing the bag because of the carbon dioxide factor, that once he closed the bag. And also Dr. Richard Shepherd felt that nobody could have placed him in the bag in the position that he was in. The position that he was in showed that he was probably alive, got himself into the bag, sort of then probably went unconscious and, settled into the position that he was in the bag. And that nobody could have put him into that position. Whereas other people, other experts, including Mr. Faulding, said that what they felt was that he was already dead and then put into the bag. But the way he was sort of folded into it, Richard Shepherd said that wasn't possible for another person to put him in the bag. Whereas Peter Faulding said it wasn't possible for him to put himself in the bag. Did you see what I mean about different experts sort of coming up with different conclusions, and where's the truth, and us mere plebs, we have to try and deal with it and work out which expert to believe, because Richard Shepherd is a very respected pathologist, so I would always believe him normally. But now we've got Peter Faulding, who's an expert. He was chosen, I think, to be, because he's an expert in confined spaces, though sometimes I do think, what is Peter not an expert in? But anyway, he said the opposite. So where's the truth again? I mean, has that led to a falling out between them? I don't know. So we've got the police saying it's theoretically possible that he did it to himself, and we've got the coroner herself and other experts. So this is poor Gareth's grave. He's buried where he was born, or in the city where he was born. It's all in Welsh, the gravestone, the writing on the gravestone. And rest in peace, Gareth. And he knows the truth, and who knows where it is. Now, there's other reasons why people think it may have been that he did it to himself, and I'm going to explain those in a moment. And there's also other reasons why people think he didn't do it to himself. Now, I just want to show you this picture, because this is Mr. Faulding getting involved. So apparently him and one other expert, they tried 400 times to fit themselves in this bag the way that Gareth had fitted himself in the bag. And they weren't able to do it. However, I would say that although Peter, I think, is a little bit shorter than Gareth, but he admitted him, we're going to see a video in a minute, he admitted he's a little bit stockier than Gareth. I'd say substantially stockier, to be honest, because Gareth was very lean. And he was very fit as well, don't forget. I mean, maybe he could sort of double. Some people are like double jointed, aren't they? And they can bend their body better than others. So I'm not saying Peter's not correct. I'm just saying we have to bear all this into account. He is not the exact height and shape as Gareth, and he's also probably not quite as fit as Gareth was. So we've got to bear that in mind. But apparently him and the other expert tried 400 times to shut themselves in. You can see he nearly does it here in this final picture. But bearing in mind, then Gareth would have had to put the padlock, lock himself in, get the padlock back in, and then somehow, where are all the fingerprints gone? You know, how is there no fingerprints or DNA on the bath, even his? So it's a difficult one. Let's see what else I've got to show you. I showed you GCHQ. Oh, and the other thing I should say, so we have to unfortunately say a little bit about Gareth's personal life. He did have, I think it was £20,000 worth of ladies' clothing in his house. Shoes. This is not his wardrobe, by the way, but I'm just using that as an example. So he did, he obviously liked to dress up in women's clothes, which doesn't mean to say, you know, that he would then lock himself in a suitcase and throw away the key or you know, lock it with a padlock. But another thing that Gareth did like to do as well was he did like to go on bondage websites, etc. However, the coroner took all that into account and decided that he did, you know, it wasn't like he was spending hours and hours and hours trawling through bondage websites. Every now and, I mean, come on, you know, if people were honest, there's probably not many people who haven't been on. At some point, you know, he was going on for maybe half an hour at the most. He wasn't just sitting there on bondage websites left, right and centre. And the only other, well, they say the only other pornography, it's not pornography, but the only other sort of strange thing, if you like, that they found were all these women's clothes, etc. in his wardrobe. However, we do need to say one other thing. When he lived in his house, when he was renting a place in, let me just make sure I've got no more pictures to send you, and then I'm going to come back to the chat. Yeah. Let's come back, make sure you're all okay. So, sorry, I'm just looking through the chat here. There's another thing, I know we shouldn't speculate yet. The other thing we should know about Gareth, whether his time on bondage websites was significant or not, when he lived in Cheltenham, when he rented an annex in Cheltenham, there was a time where the landlady testified that her husband had to go and rescue Gareth. So I think this is quite significant because I'm not saying I think that Gareth did it to himself. I'm saying this is a reason maybe why some people do think he did it to himself. Apart from this, what makes it so mysterious. So apparently he did have to be rescued once from his flat where he had tied himself to the bed and he could not get himself untied. And the landlady and landlord had to go and rescue him. And they said he was shouting for help. And now, whether that's significant or not, now, why had he done that? You know, although it is a thing, people do things like that. You know, as much as we may not be able to understand, I cannot imagine, without going into personal details, but to actually tie yourself to something when you're on your own and anything could happen. But, you know, people do die of those kind of things, don't they? You know, actually go a bit too far with this whatever they call it, autoerotic stuff. And he had to be rescued once before. So it wasn't that he had never done anything like that before. That's the only thing that I would say. So they went and rescued him. And in her words, she said she felt it was more a sexual thing rather than an escapist thing, because what he said was he was just trying to see if he could, just trying to see if he could escape. And maybe he was, maybe he was just bored one Sunday afternoon and thought, oh, I wonder if I could untie myself if I tied myself to the bed. Maybe somebody else tied him to the bed and then off they went, stole his whatever, and he didn't want to admit to anyone that anyone had done that. It's like, who knows? Again, only Gareth knows what happened that day and what his reasons were for being tied to the bed. But it is fact that he was tied to the bed and he had to scream for help, and the landlord and landlady had to go and rescue him. So that's probably another part of the reason that maybe the police feel the way that they do. There'll be other things that we won't know, like in everything else, God knows, because things came out later. But the things that came out later were more on the proof of it was foul play, and we're going to go into that. So there's a lot to this story. There's a lot to go into. But yeah, well, I did think it may, you imagine it, you look, yeah. You tie someone to the bed and then take their credit card and go off shopping, it's like, oh, bye. Like, who knows? Who knows what happened that day? He wasn't known to have any lovers, or nobody knew about, none's ever been mentioned anyway, any particular relationship that he was in or whatever. But he obviously had a secret life. He had a life. But what I was listening to one of his friends speaking on a video, a female friend, and she said, I'd be very surprised that if he had any of these type of secrets. She said, because we were good friends, we spoke about everything. She knew about his cross-dressing, etc. She said, I'm sure he would have told me about anything in his personal life because they were that close friends. But everybody lives 3 lives, don't they? Isn't it 3 lives, they say? So you've got the life that you show to the public, the life that you show to your close, your nearest and dearest, and then your real life. Everybody has got something that other people don't know about. So, yeah. So that was the thing that happened how many years ago? It was 3 years before he died that his landlady said they had to go and free him from it being tied up to his bed. Maybe, so maybe he did. Maybe he was interested in things like that. What else did I want to say? However, Peter Folding, let's have a look at what Peter Folding had to say. We can't get away from him, can we? He pops up in all these cases, doesn't he? He's like, pops up everywhere. Here he is. So let's have a look at him on this video.
The investigation into the death of 31-year-old Gareth Williams is over for now. But there are those who think the police are wrong. 3 years ago, the MI6 agent's naked body was found locked inside a red duffel bag.
The door was closed, the heating was up full in the middle of August, and the lights were out. And also there was a shower screen that was closed here. Most importantly, there was no DNA found on either the padlock, the zipper closures, anywhere around this bath.
At the time, there were questions surrounding his work for Britain's Secret Intelligence Service. The MI6 codebreaker was absent for more than a week before they reported him missing. A London coroner later said it's likely someone else was involved in his death.
So this is the last CCTV that was found, caught of Gareth on the day that they think he died. So it's very sad, isn't it? Bless him. Whatever happened, whether it was like an accident gone wrong or whether it was foul play, it's very sad. He was 31 years old and to all intents and purposes he was a really nice guy.
Coroner later said it's likely someone else was involved in his death, that Williams was either poisoned or asphyxiated, his body too badly decomposed to know for sure. But after reviewing the case, Scotland Yard now says he probably did it to himself.
I'm not saying that it would be easy, and I'm not saying that everybody could do it, but really the line you have to get to is that theoretically this is possible to do.
Peter Falding, a confined spaces expert, strongly disagrees. He testified at the coroner's inquest that there is no way Williams could have locked himself inside the bag without leaving evidence. Using the same model of North Face bag and a similar type of tub, he shows us why.
So for Gareth to actually get into the bag, he's got to step over, even if he stepped over.
And he's roughly your height.
I'm 5'6", he's 5'7".
Okay.
I'm slightly stockier build, but I've actually got to
He's a little titch, isn't he? He's only 5'6".
get in shoulder first into the bag. So into there, I can't actually, I've got to actually touch something to actually fall myself back. So this is quite an important thing to note. You've got to touch something. He would have had to put his feet on the end of the bath to actually slide himself into the bag. But another key here was there was a scuff mark on the bath. Now, when you take the actual bag, a scuff mark was found on the bath here. So my belief is that he was lifted, he was murdered, the bag was lifted, it scuffed the top, and he was dropped into the bath. With the heating up, the decomposition fluids would actually run down the plug hole, and it would stop this smell of decomposition escaping the flat.
So was this the perfect crime?
This was the perfect crime.
There is still forensic evidence left to examine. 10 to 15 samples of DNA found in his apartment, too small to test.
They didn't find anything in his, all the DNA that they did find, it was all there's nothing conclusive.
Police say that maybe one day technology may help solve this mystery.
Yeah, so there's Peter doing his bit. I agree with what he says. I mean, how would you put yourself in the bag without touching the sides, at least to get in it? But I do think he could have fit himself in the bag. But then it's interesting what Richard Shepherd said, that he did not think that anyone could have put Gareth in the bag the way they did. That he would have had to sort of settle in the bag himself. And what I think his general, if you think of it as the no foul play, what would have happened was, for some reason, he decided to see if he could, maybe he was just bored one night and decided to see if he could get into that bag. Then why would he lock it though? He could just zip it up. I don't feel like he wanted to, actually delete himself. But it's funny that the key was found under his body as well, because, or was that just like there for an extra mystery? So imagine that he's actually closed the zip, locked the padlock, and then has he not realised about the carbon dioxide thing? And just literally within a couple of minutes, he's gone unconscious, and then his body would have settled into the bag. Do you see, in the position that it was in? This is what Richard Shepherd says. He could not have been put into the bag the way he was in the bag by somebody else. That's what he said. I don't know, but I'm just saying what he said. What else did I want to tell you? So two experts, not only Peter, there was another expert who doesn't seem to have been on camera for some reason, had made these 400 attempts to do the same thing and been unable to have done it. However, Richard Shepherd said it was more likely he'd done it to himself due to the position of the body. So who do you believe? Richard Shepherd or Peter Falding? I don't know. It's not a question of believing, I suppose. Richard Shepherd, he's just given his professional opinion, as is Peter, I suppose. Richard Shepherd then went on to say he would have been overcome by a condition called hypercapnia, which basically is elevated carbon dioxide, which would kill him in just a few minutes. So maybe that's what happened. Anyway, there were no gloves in the bag, but there were no fingerprints on the padlock of the bag. So if he was to have locked the padlock himself, where were the fingerprints? So that leads you to think that it must have been somebody else locked it. But then wouldn't there be fingerprints on the... Oh, clean the fingerprints off the key, put them in the bag, and then wiped all of the surfaces down. Now, the thing about Gareth is he was wanting to go back to GCHQ. So he'd been working in the Secret Service since 2009, but he didn't like it. He didn't like the people. He didn't like the falseness. He didn't like the rat race. He didn't like the flash car competitions in the Secret Service, like the James Bond, who's got the best car. My car's bigger than your car, or my sona's better than your sona. He didn't like all that. He didn't like all the bragging, etc. And he didn't like the post-work drinking culture because he was a keep fit fanatic. He didn't like all that. So he was a cyclist, a walker, and so he wanted to go back into the country to the GCHQ. He didn't want to work in London anymore, and he was due to go back in September, but of course he died in the August. I think that's significant to me. If there is foul play, I think that's significant that it happened at the time where he decided he didn't want to be in the Secret Service anymore. So maybe he wasn't allowed to just go back to GCHQ, because maybe he knew too much about things. This has got everyone talking. It's these these mysteries, but like, you're laughing, Maggie, but do you know what? It's surprising what people do when they're bored. Who is it was telling me? Somebody, oh my God, I'm trying to think who it was. It was years ago. Telling me they worked on The Casualty, not the TV program, actually in the A&E. Do you know what kind of things people see in the A&E? We talk about, that's like, told me they'd seen a guy come in with his, whatever you call it, with his private parts stuck in a vacuum cleaner. So you would be surprised what people do when they're bored on a Saturday night or whatever. People do things that you would not imagine, so there's more stories than that. Oh, look, Riley's come so low. Hello, darling. Hello. Is it the band? That'll be because the band will be frightening him. Do you like his little Mohican? Look, he gets a little, he's just been clipped, hasn't he? He gets a little Mohican. He's beautiful, aren't you? No, you can't stay up there on my knee. Okay, so going back to this. Right, let's have a look at another article here. Right, this was a BBC article, which is quite interesting because it gives us a few more details. So this is Peter talking again. So M16 spy inquest. When was this article? So this was in 2012. The expert is convinced the agent was dead before putting bag. And it's going to show him again, is it?
Yes, there was a second expert giving evidence a short time ago, Peter Faulding, and he had told the court that he had tried to lock himself inside a bag about 300 times in circumstances that would have been similar to what they were considering, so unaided. He said that he was not able to do that. He said that was an unbelievable...
He gets in on everything, doesn't he, Peter? He does.
inconceivable scenario. He also told the inquest about work he had done, and there was a video shown to illustrate this, where he would try to climb into a bag inside a bath, and he said that he believed that this could not be done without leaving marks. He said that he had his feet rested on the bath and tiles, and that would have left some kind of evidence which was not present in the crime scene that was discovered when Gareth Williams' body was found. He was then also asked whether it's possible for one person alone to lift someone of Gareth's weight into a bath, and he said that that would be possible. He also was asked about survivability. If somebody was put unconscious inside a bag which was closed, and he'd done some experiments testing how the oxygen levels would fall pretty rapidly. He said that they had fallen within 5 minutes, that the temperature had risen by about 10 degrees in these 5 minutes. He was asked by the coroner how long somebody might survive in those circumstances, and he put that at around 30 minutes maximum. But he believed that Gareth would have been placed there by a third party. He was asked whether he was satisfied to be sure, and he said he was.
Well, there you go. There you go. Hang on. Let me just go on with the article. So, as an inquest into the death of M16, is it? Or MI6? Yes, sorry. You know I'm rubbish with numbers. Gareth Williams finds on the balance of probabilities, I hate that expression as well, he was unlawfully killed. Peter Folding, an expert on confined spaces and who gave evidence at the inquest, says he is convinced Mr. Williams was dead before he was put inside the bag. During 7 days of inquest, the question of whether the 31-year-old codebreaker could have padlocked himself into a bag in a bath was central, and the footage of Peter Folding struggling to do just that was circulated worldwide. And you know, isn't it funny, because I watched all these things at the time and I never connected, because, you know, Peter Folding with the high-vis jacket, I never connected him with the expert that was struggling to get into the bag. Anyway, speaking to the BBC, Mr. Folding said he had tried and failed 300 times. So, do you know, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not offending anyone but laughing, but it just, you couldn't make these things up, could you? Even Harry Houdini wouldn't have managed it, he said. Both Mr. Folding, who is 5'6" tall and weighs 70 kilograms, and the dead MI6 officer were of similar build. I don't think they were similar build. He says getting into the bag was not a problem. The critical issue is the way in which the bag had been padlocked. Gareth could have got into the bag. I put my head in first, followed by the shoulders and then the leg. You can get into the bag and you can zip the bag up. That's not a problem, he said. So we've got Gareth Williams, height 5'7", which is sort of not short, is it? But it's not tall either. It's sort of, I mean, it's taller than me, but everyone's taller than me. But and then the bag was 81 centimeters times 48 centimeters. The problem is when it is in the bath, putting the padlock on and actually securing the bath from the inside. Gareth was found in a very peaceful position, so there was no struggle. Now, he believes he was dead before he was put in the bag, whereas the other experts believe he must have been alive when he was in there. Would he not have had rigor mortis anyway? But I suppose that takes a while to set in, doesn't it? But, you know, I don't know. But anyway, this is why Richard Shepherd thinks he must have put himself in it, because of the peaceful position he was in, because he thinks the carbon dioxide got to him and he would have just fallen asleep and settled into the bag. So, but of course, so the family were very angry with the police because, sorry, not the police, with his workmates and that, you know, with the GCHQ or whoever he was working for at the time, because of how long it took to find him, it was 7 days before he was found. And because of the central heating being on there, you know, his decomposition was accelerated. So it was very difficult, you know, whereas if he would have been found within a couple of days, they would have been able to find out so much more, you know, would have been about his cause of death, etc. So the family were very angry with everything, and I don't blame them, really, to be honest. So Peter believed that the I won't say M16, the MI6 officer would have to have been dead. So he said, you can't access the lock from the inside without damaging the bag. So it cannot be padlocked from the inside. And the lock was left in a strange position. And the absence of any traces of DNA confirms Mr. Folding's belief that Mr. Williams was dead before he was put inside the bag. There would have been prints, there would have been DNA left on the bath as Gareth lowered himself inside the bag, but there was no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing actually at the scene. The door was closed and the key to the bag was actually under Gareth's right buttock. Now, you see, this leads me to think, this is one of the reasons where I think, how could somebody else have done it and put the key underneath him? So, you know, because if you locked it from the outside and then sort of just threw it into the bag, it wouldn't have gone underneath his right buttock. You know, it just makes me wonder if it was Gareth did do it. Just let's think about it for a moment. Did he drop the key when he was in there, and then that meant he couldn't get himself out? You know, that's a possibility as well. You know, that somehow, because I'm sure a contortionist, we've all watched Britain's Got Talent. There are some people could easily have got into that bag. Maybe Peter Folding couldn't get in it, and I'm damn sure I couldn't have got in it. But there are people who can get into all sorts of things, you know, just so it's possible. You know, we've got to think that's what the police say. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. I'm just trying to do a devil's advocate here. I don't know what I think, to be honest. It's total mystery. But I think, why were those keys under his right buttock? Now, bearing in mind the way Peter showed that he was lying, you know, with his face upwards. So maybe he dropped it. Maybe he was just literally was like, oh, let's, you know, see if I can get into this bag and lock myself in. Why he would have locked it, I don't know. And how did it get there? So did he drop it and then he couldn't reach it, and then the carbon dioxide got him and he died within a couple of minutes? Well, it's a possibility, I suppose. So the heating was turned on fully in August, and Peter says, my belief is that the bag was placed in the bath with Gareth dead already, and I believe there was definitely a third party involved, or third parties. So that's another possibility that we've got to explore all possibilities, I suppose. It's very sad for his family, because I don't know, you know, if they'll ever have a definitive answer. Do you? Anyway, more to this story, believe it or not, as if it couldn't get any more. Because then so it was declared there was insufficient evidence at the inquest. It was declared there was insufficient evidence for unlawful killing, so that verdict couldn't be given. So the verdict was a narrative verdict, and the coroner said the death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated, and that she was satisfied on the balance of probabilities that Gareth was killed unlawfully. So that was the coroner's verdict. It was one of these, we talked about verdicts in another video that I did, you know, and of course that didn't happen with Nicola Bulley, even with all the inconsistencies. Not only it wasn't an open verdict, which it should have been, but it wasn't even a narrative verdict. When you look, anyone in the future that looks at that verdict, it just says Nicola Bulley died an accidental death. There's no narrative verdict in it whatsoever. Whereas in this one, she admits that there's not enough evidence for unlawful killing, so she could not give that verdict, but she makes the narrative verdict and explains the circumstances, and that in her opinion, it was mediated unlawfully. So she concluded that another party placed the bag in the bath with Gareth inside it and then locked it. Now, but then, of course, they put the keys back into the bag because the keys were found in the bag, according, you know, if that's what happened. She said that he probably died of... Oh, so she thinks he was alive when he went in the bag, but he probably died of carbon dioxide poisoning or short-acting poison. And that's relevant in a minute when I tell you something else that came up about this story. So she criticised the the secret services for their 7-day delay. And she said that this made it difficult, you know, for the forensic evidence, etc. And they should have reported him missing earlier. And she said this caused problems with forensics and it caused more problems and misery for the family. She rejected suicide, bondage, cross-dressing, or autoerotic activity. She rejected all those scenarios because she said his visits to bondage sites had been intermittent and, you know, not obsessive. And that, and that she thought that this release of the information about his cross-dressing, about having all the women's clothes in his wardrobe, etc., was media manipulation. Media manipulation, oh my God. Perish the thought there'd never be any media manipulation, surely. But it's quite encouraging to hear a coroner say that it was media manipulation, isn't it? So you can see why she's chief. Hey, Rocky, what are you barking at? What? It's probably the band. Hey. Okay. Oh God, the other one's starting now. So after this coroner's verdict, that's when the Met Police started their own investigation, and that took 12 months to complete. And the guy that we looked at before, Martin Hewitt, he declared that the most probable scenario was that he had died as a result of an accident. So he completely contradicted what the coroner said. So the coroner said that it's likely to be foul play. Then the police, the Met Police, decided it was likely to have been an accident for whatever reason, you know, for the investigation they did, a 12-month investigation. So you can imagine, yeah, Ralmo's here again, yeah. So you can imagine that the family weren't very happy with that at all, because the family have said right from the beginning they think it's foul play. Anyway, so just when you think things can't get any stranger, in 2015, there were more developments in this case, and this may be what really happened, though I'm always a bit reluctant to go along with this, which I'll explain to you in a minute. So some Russian guy in 2015, Boris Karpachevkov, I can't pronounce his surname, but anyway, it was called Boris, who was a former KGB agent who had defected from Russia and is now living in Britain. He said that sources in Russia had claimed that it was the Russians who did it. It's always the Russians, isn't it? See, this is what I was alluding to before. I'm always reluctant to blame the Russians for everything. You know, personally, to me, I think it's more likely our own secret services did it, because he wanted to just go back to GCHQ. He didn't like being in the secret service. I mean, is that what happened? Well, can you just turn around to the secret service and say, I don't want to work for you anymore? You know, to me, honestly, I think if it was foul play, it was probably more likely to be our own secret services, because he knew too much, or because he didn't want him to leave the secret service. Bear in mind, he was planning on leaving the secret service. Anyway, this guy, this Boris, I should try and pronounce his name, Karpachevkov, he claimed it was the Russians who did it. And he claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service had done it. Someone had told him this anyway, some source of his in Russia told him that the Foreign Intelligence Service had done it because they had tried and failed to blackmail him into becoming a double agent. And Gareth would not become a double agent. And for that reason, he says the Russians did it. And what they did was they used an untraceable poison, according to him, and they introduced it into his ear. Now, the only reason I'm a bit skeptical of this, I think, how did they introduce it into his ear? You know, so there's no signs of break-in, don't forget. So it must have been somebody he knew. I mean, maybe he had a paramour, if you like, or a boyfriend or girlfriend. I mean, I don't know actually that it was gay. Just because someone's a cross-dresser does not actually mean that they're gay. So it could have been a man, it could have been a woman. Maybe they came knocking on his door. Then somehow then took control of him. Maybe there was more than one person. Now, there was actually a couple were seen entering his building, but later they were eliminated, let's say, from the inquiry. I hope they were only eliminated from the inquiry, not just not eliminated from life in general. But it's very, it's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting, because maybe someone did come knocking on his door that night and say, somebody he knew, somebody who had tried to enlist him in the Russian Secret Service, or maybe someone from the British Secret Service. I mean, we'll never know, will we? We'll never get to know probably the full story. But maybe one day. I always think that these sort of things, they'll come out one day, but probably not. Well, certainly not in my lifetime. Maybe some of you are a bit younger might get to find out. And you might end up saying, oh, yeah, Vicky was right. Vicky Marie Chats. Well, you can't say, no, you won't end up saying that, because I don't even know what I think from this. Okay, I've got a couple of other things just to show you before we finish. So was it the Russians? So was it an accident? Was it the British Secret Service? Or was it the Russians? So I'm just laughing because it always ends up being the Russians somewhere along the line. But at the end of the day, whatever it was, poor Gareth lost his life at the age of 31. So let's have just one look at a couple of other things that I just had prepared for you just to have a look at. So this was an article in the Standard, and the parents. Now imagine, it must be awful when you sit through inquests and things. His parents refused to watch the video of his body in the hold-all bag. So it's just awful, isn't it, to think of seeing your family member, you know, actually seeing the video, etc. So when my ex-partner, when I went to his inquest, I don't remember being shown anything. You know, there was nothing like that I remember anyway, and I'm sure I would have remembered it if there would have been pictures. But maybe they didn't show them publicly, or maybe I've got a very sort of blurred memory of that because it was so traumatic. Maybe I left as soon as I'd given my evidence and I didn't wait for any other evidence. I just don't remember, to be honest. So anyway, there he is. You can see how athletic he is. He is athletic. I think he could have got himself in that case if he would have wanted to. But I'm not saying that he did. I'm just saying I think it's him trying to get in there is different from Peter Folding trying to get in there. So anyway, the parents of MI6 spy Gareth Williams today refused to watch a police video of their son dead in a bag in his bath. Well, I'm not surprised. Ian and Ellen Williams walked out after coroner Dr. Fiona Wilcox spoke of the severe distress they are operating under and the clear grief they are still experiencing. Awful, poor, it's just such a shame. So the video led from the front door in Alderney Street, Pimlico, to the ensuite bathroom, and the scarlet red North Face hold-all lay in the middle of the small bath. It was locked with a Yale padlock, securing the zip and two eyelets in a way which the court heard made it particularly hard to lock and release. Not a trace of blood could be seen, and every inch of the bath basin, lavatory and shower unit gleamed brightly. The inquest at Westminster Coroner's Court was told that not one scrap of relevant forensic evidence was found in the flat. I mean, that is a bit strange in itself, isn't it? No, not even his. I mean, had it been just cleaned, or does that mean that it was just him in there and there was nobody else in there? So the naked and decomposed body of Mr. Williams, 31, was found in August 2010. On my birthday, he had been on secondment from GCHQ to MI6. Later, a 3D graphic showed how his body was found in the bag. So Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sebia told the court, in my opinion, his face was very calm. He was unclothed and in a fetal position with his legs folded towards his chest and his arms slightly bent, lying on his chest. So like this. Oh, so no injuries to his nails, nail beds or fingers. While the bag zips are double stitched, there's no signs of stress or tearing to them, nor is there any sign of tearing to the netting in the bag. So there's no struggle, basically. The officer said that Mr. Williams was extremely fit and there would have been clear signs of damage had he put up a struggle. So I think generally he was either dead when he went in there or he was drugged, you know, he'd been drugged, poisoned by them. There was no struggle at all in the flat, you know, so nothing found in the flat. So it is I mean, talk about a mystery. It is a complete mystery. So it's not, you know, sometimes there's mysteries, but people think, you know, there's suspects, aren't there? Or, you know, people think that maybe this has happened or they've probably done it or blah, 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 blah. But with this, I think it is a totally complete mystery. So forensic scientists are still working on unidentified components of DNA, but they worked on them. They found nothing found on the bag in which he died. There is still work to be done. So microscopic traces were found on the padlock and a toggle attached to the outside of the bag, but they could not be. Oh, one of the items of DNA that was identified was one of the people, you know, one of the forensic people. It was identified as their DNA. So, but there was no DNA found that related to anybody else. No one. None, I should say. Let's see if I can find this. See if we can watch this. This was his last movements again. Let's have a look. Bless him. I wonder what he had in that carrier bag. I mean, literally, that's it. It was just some CCTV. He's been out and bought something. I wonder what he bought. I wonder if that's when, you know, he bought the padlock, or had he bought food, or was he buying food for because he had somebody coming, you know, for dinner or whatever. Don't know. We don't know those details. Like, we don't know what his last meal was, or were the pots in the sink, or, you know, had he had a takeaway? We don't know any of that. So, very sad. Very, very, very sad. Let's have a look at these. So this is his flats. So I'm showing you the photos of his flats. It is a video, but I don't want to play the video because I'm not sure. It's a podcast, but I don't know how that will go with the you know, the copyright, etc. Unfortunately, got this big arrow. I might play it and see what happens. So I don't know if this was the actual bathroom. Can't be, surely. It looks dirty. Why does that? It must be, though. Why does it look so dirty? Or is that just the effects of something? Or is that the actual bathroom? Why does it look like that? Computer added something, it says. Can't read it. Anyway, this was his flat. The keys, the padlock and the keys. Let's have a little look.
To Spiff808. Excellent podcast. Said, absolutely love your show. Present the facts in a well-organized, systematic fashion that allows the listener to put together their own thoughts on each case prior to the theory section. It also goes on to just say, wish you could produce more shows throughout the week, but I understand that people got to work. Yes, I do have to work. It says keep up the outstanding work.
Okay, I just wanted to show those. All right, let's come back and have a see how the chat's going. So what's the general feeling? Oh yeah, it could be fingerprint dust. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was thinking, what the hell is that? Yeah, because I think it was sparkling, because what was said at the inquest was that actually, you know, the whole scene was sparkling clean. So no, I think you're right. I think it's fingerprint dust. Yeah. So everyone, yeah, yeah, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. So anybody think it? What do you think? Do you think it's the Russians, or do you think it's our own social services? I keep calling them social services. Oh, dear me. Yeah, and the other thing, though, I did think, it just reminded me looking at your comments. Yeah, let's have a look at the dirty bathroom again. I think you're right. I think it could be. Where is it? Oh, God. I don't know what I've done with it now. Oh, I might not be able to find it again now. Anyway, you can rewind and have a look. But I think you're right. I think it is the fingerprint. Might be able to find them. Hang on. Gosh, trying to find the thing that I had up there before. Right, I found it again. Let's have one more look at that then. Yeah, what do you think? Because it says something computer aided model something. Let's have a look. Yeah. Fingerprint dust. Do you know?
Mysterious Circumstances is an American Crimecast production. Remember, everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Hey everybody, it's Justin from Mysterious Circumstances podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm actually doing this recording before I start recording with Kimberly for today's episode because I had to get a lot of just acknowledgement for reviews out of the way and stuff and give you guys some good news that I think you'll enjoy. First with the reviews though, I'd like to say thank you to Spiff.
I've saved the image. I've saved the image. Maybe I can see it better that way. Let's have a look. Oh, what? That wasn't the image that I saved. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, they definitely said at the inquest that the bathroom was gleaming. That was what they said. So that whatever that was in those pictures was either, as you say, fingerprint dust or I don't know. Don't even know. It was just no idea. But bless him. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you as well. Oh, he might do me for copyright. I don't know. This is one of my favourite YouTubers, and he did a video on it. Very interesting. That chapter. Very good YouTube channel.
Much more like a spy novel than your usual missing persons unsolved death case. Described as a prodigy, a brilliant mathematician who graduated university at age 17. He was a really nice guy who was about a week, so it was in quite a bad state.
A murder, she should be given access to everybody that knew him or everybody the police think should be interviewed.
Detectives quickly established that Gareth hadn't been shot, stabbed, or hacked to pieces, and the toxicology reports.
Yeah, what that there was a lot of complaints that it was a very difficult case to investigate, to be fair, by anybody, because it was a secret service. Even the FBI got involved. Why were the FBI involved? You know, so there's so much sensitivity around what he knew and what is, you know, because he was a spy or worked for the social services. I think
They came back
even
inconclusive.
Because we spoke about a lot of personal things.
So this is his friend saying that she felt that if there would have been anything more like sexually, you know, or whatever, he would have told her about it because they talked about everything. She was a good friend of his.
I'm very, very open-minded, and I know he is as well. And
he was working with MI6 at the time of his death.
Yeah. So as much as I love that chapter, I don't want to show anymore because he might not like me showing it. So. Polly eats toast with a knife and fork. I like eating with my hands, but my hands are always clean. Believe me, I wash my hands just like probably about 30 times a day. I'm a bit obsessive about washing my hands, but I do like eating with my hands or eating with my fingers. But like chips and you know, obviously I don't try and eat spaghetti bolognese with my fingers. But you know, chips, things that are easy to pick up, I do quite like that. Gosh. Okay, so that is the story of poor Gareth, and rest in peace, Gareth. You know, I bet he's sort of looking down and thinking, oh my God, if only you knew what happened. You know, who knows? So there's always, you feel like there's always somebody out there who knows, even when obviously the victim knows, but the victim can't speak. You always feel like there's somebody out there who does know what happened. But, do you know, sometimes crimes don't come to light, do they? You know, I've come to realise that's why you always think, oh, crimes always come to light, but they don't always. So whether this one ever will, I don't know. Hi, Rio. Are you back from Kung Fu? Yes, we're still live. Yeah, I do think it's natural, Wesley, to eat with your hands as long as they're clean, as long as you make sure, you know, like I am, as I say, quite obsessive about washing my hands, but yeah, they have to be clean, but and only obviously easy things. I wouldn't try eating soup with my hands, you know, that's like not something, you know, but as I say, finger food. I love finger food, buffet food, that kind of things. I really like. Just easy to eat. Oh, Bridget, you're welcome. And I hope you found it interesting. I try and bring things, try and talk about things that are interesting. You know, this crime is a complete. I'm not a lover of unsolved crimes, to be honest, because crime channels that I watch, like I love Mike's channel, that chapter, there's loads of crime channels that I like watching. And I do prefer solved crimes only because I get frustrated if you don't know what's happened. But sometimes with cases like this, is such a mystery. You know, has it been solved? I mean, when that Russian guy came out and said, oh, yeah, it was the Russians, maybe that is the answer. I just think his parents be living in perpetual hell, not knowing what's happened to their son. I mean, at the end of the day, this guy, he was a child prodigy. He was a genius. You know, he had a degree, graduated with a first-class degree in mathematics at the age of 17. You know, he had so much promise. And he was only 31 when he died. I mean, 31 is no age whatsoever, is it? You know, I know when you're 21, maybe you think someone of 31 is old, But, you know, when you're older, you know that 31 is the best years of someone's life. Your 30s, I think, are a very sort of pivotal point in your life, because you're a bit more mature, you know what you're doing, but you're not quite as what's cynical as maybe by the time you get to 40 or 50. But yeah, he may well have been autistic or on the spectrum, because he did like his own company. You know, he who knows, but to all intents and purposes, from what anyone who knows him has said, and I know people who know someone, they do tend to say, oh, they're lovely, especially after someone's left this world. It's rare, isn't it? If you're listening to someone being talked about who's a victim, it's rare for someone to say, oh, well, they were a right twonk anyway. You know, people don't tend to speak badly of people that have passed. And nobody is perfect. So anybody will have some bad, you know, things at anybody. You know, that's just human nature. But from what I can, you know, from Gareth, everyone had good positive things to say about him. He was a person who kept himself to himself. You know, he was private, and he had his things that he didn't do any harm to anybody. You know, I think to me that is so pivotal, what you contribute in life. You just try not, and sometimes it's difficult not to be nasty to people, especially when they've been nasty to you first. But if you can get through your life without being deliberately nasty to someone, just keeping yourself to yourself is enough. You know, not going out of your way to be a twonk. And it seems like Gareth was one of those sort of people, and it's a shame. It's a shame how he ended up, and of course, the fact that we'll never know probably the true story, not only yours, but the fact that his parents, you know, what they must, that must be very difficult for them. It's bad enough to lose, you know, if you lost your child or your son at 31 or any age, is bad enough, but to lose them in those circumstances, I just can't imagine it. But what's that, Rio? You're very violent by accident. Yes, do you know, Susan's mentioned about these three. I was sort of toying with the idea of doing about that case tonight, but this is still quite unclear, isn't it? Oh, but there was a few interesting things on the, well, there's always interesting things on the news, isn't there? But I don't know if you read about Amelia Earhart. I was on Twitter. I saw that News Nation, which actually I might show this, because if you're not bored yet and you want to talk a little bit longer, it's thought that, yeah, let's have a look at this. Don't know if you've seen this, but unfortunately I have to mention the words side scan sonar. No, not side scan, just sonar. But it's thought that maybe her aeroplane may have been found at the bottom of the Pacific. So a pilot who's been on an $11 million expedition to find out what happened to Amelia Earhart believes he may have found her plane at the bottom of the Pacific. And here's the sonar image. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Oh, I'm not allowed to go on the site. They don't like you going on the site because I'm not in a country that's allowed to go on the site, I suppose. But anyway, you can see that picture. Very interesting, because nobody, you know, everybody thought that a plane had probably gone to the bottom of the ocean. But how has he got all the way down there? So I can't click onto the website because it won't let me because I'm in the wrong country, but you can see clearly on that sonar that it looks like a plane. So that was something interesting that was on Twitter today. And yeah, this case of, let's see, it might have another. Yeah, this case of these 3 guys that were found in someone's back garden. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to find that. But anyway, I am following that case, and I am thinking of doing a video on it. But I want to just see until more details come out about that case, because that's very mysterious, isn't it? Now, let me tell you what's coming up. I may do a live tomorrow. I'm not sure. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I have to see what's going on. But Thursday, of course, is Members Live. I will be doing the Members Live, and I'll be looking at a few things to do with the documentary that's coming on Friday that we're all agog for, aren't we? Not really. I've seen the trailer for that Channel 5 programme about Nicola Bulley. I found it really creepy, to be honest. So God knows what's going to come out in that. It just very odd that it's even on. You know, why are they still? They moan about us all talking about, you know, the social media and, you know, dastardly YouTubers and TikTokers, etc. And there's Channel 5, you know, presenting a documentary, the definitive documentary about Nicola Bulley. A case that's supposed to be cut and dried, isn't it? So it's very, very mysterious to me why it's even on. But of course, I'll be watching it, as we all will be. And I'm going to try and record it so that we can watch it together again after that. But on Thursday, I'll be showing you the trailer for it, and we'll be talking about a few other things and whatever comes up. So the other thing I want to remind you of, a few of you have sent me in some. I'm going because I'm tired, and but will I be back tomorrow? I'm not sure if I'll be back tomorrow night or not. I'll probably put some sort of a video out at some point, but whether it'll be a live or not, I don't know. But Thursday, I would definitely be back for Members Live. Looking forward to it. I always look forward to the Members Lives, especially. I look forward to all the lives, and it's lovely to chat with everyone. But we know, like, the Members Lives are a bit special, aren't they? So I will see you very soon. Remember to live and love very carefully, especially coming up to Valentine's Day. Choose your Valentine wisely and carefully. Be very careful. And I will see you very soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. And more importantly, because I don't think actually I've said thank you tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching, liking, subscribing. Thank you, everyone who's a member or anyone who's supported my channel in any way, sent me a super or bought me a Ko-fi or just sent me an email, participated in the chat, said nice things. Even you trolley dollies, thank you, because you keep watching. Thank you. And I'll see you soon. Adios. Adios. Buenas noches.